Welcome back to another edition of the Luis Estrada Sports Report. I am your host, Luis Estrada, and welcome to today's show. It's been way too long since I've done one of these shows, so welcome back. I hope you enjoy all the sports information I'm about to give you, as well as my opinions. So let's get started in the NFL right now as we're getting ready to kick off round 2 of the NFL playoffs here in 2013. Let's recap round 1, where one of the big games was in Green Bay. The Green Bay Packers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. And tell you what, it was a rematch of Week 17 in which the Vikings had to win just to get into the playoffs. Well, guess what? Their playoff run ended right there in Green Bay as the Green Bay Packers beat the Minnesota Vikings 24-10. Now, the Packer defense was absolutely phenomenal, forcing three Minnesota Viking turnovers, and just did a great job of really making quarterback Joe Webb struggle reading defenses all day long. They kept getting pressure on him. He was constantly under duress, did not let up, and made it very difficult for him to complete anything. Arian Foster, he did have a good day, 99 yards rushing, but they did keep him out of the end zone. Aaron Rodgers for the Packers threw for 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, which is always a good thing, especially in the playoffs. Now this week, because Green Bay won, they actually get to travel to San Francisco and look for revenge from a Week 1 loss at Green Bay, in which San Francisco beat them 30-22. Now, however, things have changed in San Francisco since then, as now Colin Kaepernick is calling the signals for the San Francisco 49ers and not Alex Smith. And I'm going to tell you, if you've watched the San Francisco 49er team since the replacement of Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick has this offense playing on all cylinders. He's been fantastic for San Francisco in and out of the pocket. He's played really well. I'm very interested to see how this game takes place. You've got the revenge factor for Green Bay. You know, they're going to come out. They're going to really try to throw the ball around. But you know what? San Francisco's front 7 just does what they do best. They're going to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be able to get out of some, but not all. They're going to put a lot of pressure on him, really jam up the receivers. I like the San Francisco 49ers in this game to win and advance to the NFC Championship game. Let's talk about the other game last weekend. You had the Seattle Seahawks, who all of a sudden have a defense that just seemingly can't be scored upon. This defense has been stellar the last couple of weeks in the NFL, and they went to Washington to take on the Washington Redskins and Robert Griffin III. Now, I'll tell you what, Robert Griffin III has had such a phenomenal year, but injuries have kind of hindered his development and his growth this year. And on Sunday, we saw more of the same, as the Washington went out to a 14-0 lead real quick on Seattle, did a great job moving up and down the ball. However, then the Seattle Seahawks defense did a great job of really clamping down defensively. They held the Washington Redskins to 203 yards of total offense. That's unheard of in today's game. Robert Griffin III did suffer an injury in this game. He tore his LCL and his ACL. He did have surgery this past week and is expected to be out 6 to 8 months. Now back to the game. Once Robert Griffin went out, the sails just kind of seemed to really go out of Washington's offense. They couldn't really get anything going. The Seattle defense deserves a lot of credit. They really put a lot of pressure on Washington quarterbacks, stopped the run, they stopped the pass, and they just did a phenomenal job. Rookie quarterback Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks had a really good game. Not a lot of stats that really jump out at you, but he controlled the game very well. Made plays when he had to. He had a 28-yard run on a 3rd down that was huge down the stretch. Really big game for him in his playoff debut. Great job for Seattle. I'll tell you what, if I am the team they play next, which is the Atlanta Falcons, I do not want to see the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's just playing phenomenal. Pete Carroll has this defense really believing in his schemes and really believing in his system. He's got the guys that he wants. He's got the quarterback that he wants. This team is playing absolutely insane. And don't forget Marshawn Lynch back there, who had 132 yards rushing last week against the Washington Redskins. So all that being said, they're going to be traveling to the number 1 seed Atlanta Falcons this week, and I'll tell you what, I do not want to be Atlanta this week the way Seattle is playing. They're just playing way too well. I'm picking Seattle to upset Atlanta in Atlanta this weekend, which will set up San Francisco and Seattle in the NFC Championship game next week. Now, switching gears to the AFC, where you had the team that was really on a roll all season long. They kind of faltered at the end. The Houston Texans. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC all year long, slipping in the last week, falling to the 3rd seed, and had to play last week. And they ended up playing the Cincinnati Bengals at home in Houston. Now, the Houston Texans defense did a phenomenal job. Another defensive-led team. They held the Cincinnati Bengals to under 200 yards of total offense in winning that game 19-13 in Houston. Now, Arian Foster had a great game for Houston, rushing for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the story of this game was not only the Houston defense, but the time control of the Houston offense. They held the ball for 38 minutes, almost 39 minutes of this game, keeping Cincinnati's offense off the field, okay, which means Cincinnati didn't even really get a chance to do much. They only held the ball for 21 minutes in that game, and I'm going to tell you what, unless you are the Oregon Ducks, 21 minutes of offense is not going to get it done anywhere in this league, and I'm going to, it is what it is. Houston controlled the clock, they controlled the ball, they stifled Cincinnati defensively, and they played a fantastic scheme. Great win for the Houston Texans. Now that brings them this week, traveling to number 2, the New England Patriots. And I'll tell you, this is a rematch of a Monday night game from a few weeks ago in which the Patriots just went out and crushed the Houston Texans 42-14, in which Tom Brady threw for 4 touchdowns in that game and just really dissected that Houston defense. Houston's going to be out for revenge in this game. However, the week off is really going to help New England, help them get over the injuries that they've had all season long, nagging injuries to the tight end specifically. So I really expect New England to really come out, and Bill Belichick, you give him 2 weeks to prepare. You know what? You're really kind of going on borrowed time. And I really think New England is going to take this game. They're going to beat the Houston Texans and set themselves up for another AFC Championship game. Who will they play? Well, let's look at the other matchup this week. Last week, you had the Baltimore Ravens facing off against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Indianapolis was led by first-year quarterback Andrew Luck, and I'll tell you what, they surprised a lot of people. They surprised me. I know they surprised a lot of experts out there. Nobody gave them much of a chance. Maybe 6 wins, 7 at the most. Well, they ended up making into the playoffs in the AFC as a number 5 seed and went into Baltimore. Now, right before the game was starting, you had the announcement from Ray Lewis that once this playoff run is over, his career is over. And that gave Baltimore a huge boost defensively. They were in the backfield all game long. They kept Andrew Luck guessing. They put a lot of pressure on him. And they came out with a 24-9 win over the Indianapolis Colts. Bernard Pierce rushed for 103 yards and a touchdown. Ray Rice also had 70 yards for them. Now, Andrew Luck, statistically, you look at his stats, okay, he had 288 yards, but he had 54 passing attempts. That's an NFL rookie record. That's unheard of in the playoffs to have 54 pass attempts. He completed 28 of them, had a 288 yards passing, but did have 1 interception and 0 touchdowns. The Ravens defense kept them out of the end zone all game long. Really just confused Andrew Luck and kept that offense at bay. This week, the Ravens are going to be traveling to Denver to face the number 1 Denver Broncos. And I'm going to tell you, if you look at the Denver Broncos, I thought they would be good once they got Peyton Manning. I thought, okay, they'll win the AFC West, but I did not expect them to gel as well as they did. This defense has been playing fabulous football the last 8 or 9 weeks of the NFL season. Do not expect them to let up at all. This is a rematch of a game from about a month ago in which in Baltimore, the Denver Broncos went in there and just crushed the Baltimore Ravens 34-17, and the game was not even that close as Baltimore got 2 garbage time touchdowns in the 4th quarter to make that game a little bit closer. Peyton Manning had 1 touchdown in that game, but the story of that game was the Denver Bronco defense and the pressure they got on Joe Flacco, and they kept the Baltimore Ravens running game at bay. So I do like Denver in this game, setting up a rematch of Denver and New England, and of course pitting who else? Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady. Arguably 2 of the best quarterbacks in the game today and probably 2 of the best of their generation. We're going to see them go at it one more time, I believe, in the AFC Championship game for the right to go to the Super Bowl. Okay, so the NFL is on fire right now. The NFL playoffs are in full swing. Like I said, let's recap here. I expect the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Green Bay Packers, Seattle to beat the Atlanta Falcons, New England to beat to win their game. I forgot who they're playing all of a sudden. And the Denver Broncos to beat the Baltimore Ravens. So those are my picks. New England will beat Houston, excuse me. So let's switch gears now to the Major League Baseball. And, this was a big week in Major League Baseball as the Hall of Fame announcement was made this week for the class of 2013. This was a huge one because everyone was looking to this to say, okay, how are they going to treat Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens in their first year of eligibility? This is really going to be the start of the whole, are we going to look at guys in the steroid era individually? Are we going to look at them as a whole? Well, I'll tell you what, the Baseball Writers of America Committee, they made their voices heard. Nobody was elected into the Hall of Fame this year, which surprised a lot of people. Craig Biggio of the Houston Astros came the closest with 68.2% of the vote. Jack Morris was next with 67.7% of the vote in his second to last year of eligibility. Now, some of the first-time guys that everyone was waiting to see how they were going to do. Well, let's look at it. Barry Bonds, all-time home run king. He came in at 37.6% of the vote. You had Roger Clemens at 37.6% as well. And then you had someone like Mike Piazza, who was never linked to any kind of PEDs. He only got 57.7% of the vote to get into the Hall of Fame. Now, I do expect some of those numbers to jump up next year, but let me tell you something. These players that are that close, Craig Biggio, Jack Morris, Mike Piazza, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, these guys are Hall of Famers. Okay, I don't care how you look at it. Okay, did they play in the steroid era? Were they possibly using? Okay, you want to say they're possibly, fine. But let me tell you something. They weren't the only ones. Not only that, you look at the Mitchell report and all the players' names that came out in that Mitchell report. What this person was using, that person was using. All those players are not eligible for Hall of Fame. They don't have the backing for the Hall of Fame. They don't have the numbers for the Hall of Fame. These are players that do have the backing for the Hall of Fame, that do have the numbers for the Hall of Fame. They were playing against guys who are also using. So does that mean that, let's say Eric Gagne is an example of someone who came out, we found out was using HGH. Does that mean that every single home run that Barry Bonds hit against Eric Gagne is legit? Because they were on an even playing field, but against somebody else that are not. Unless you're going to go back and document every single one, these guys are in the Hall of Fame. You have to let them in the Hall of Fame. Otherwise, you're going to wipe out a whole era of nobody getting in the Hall of Fame the next few years, and that includes guys like Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Frank Thomas, the guys who are eligible next year. You can't put a blanket slate on saying, okay, we're letting nobody in. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, whether you like them or not, deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Mike Piazza deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Craig Biggio, Jack Morris. One other guy that is no longer eligible is Dale Murphy. If you grew up in the 80s and early 90s, you saw Dale Murphy play. I'll tell you what, this guy was a phenomenal baseball player. In a time in which pitching dominated, Dale Murphy was constantly in the top of the league in home runs. He is a multiple-time All-Star, multiple-time MVP. The guy is a Hall of Famer. Why he's not in the Hall of Fame, I do not know, and I will not understand. Dale Murphy's a Hall of Famer. He would have my vote if I had the chance. So that is my sports report today. My name is Luis Estrada. You can follow me on Twitter at LESTRADAJR. Coming up next week, we're going to talk about the Lakers. Laker trade rumors for Dwight Howard possibly on the move. We're also going to be talking about college football wrapping up this year. And what was overall a really good year for college football, but there was a lot of problems with college football. We're going to address those next week. I'm Luis Estrada. I'll see you next time.